And welcome back, everybody. This is Keith Andrews, your host of The Gathering, right here live on the Universal Portal of Peace. And we sort of, well, we did. We cut the last segment a tad short. Well, not short, but the topic, due to a few technical issues that have to be dealt with. Now, something I do want to clarify. Okay, when I made the comment in the last segment, and we are talking about rebuilding the community from the home, and I made a comment where I said flat out that people saying that you can't understand what's going on, you haven't walked in my shoes, you've not lived it, you don't know. And I called it a crock, an excuse. I also said that people that tell you that there are times when people will tell you something and they really don't have a clue. And what I mean by that is this. If somebody comes to you, if you've lost a loved one, and somebody says, and it's been 8 months, a year, in some cases a decade, and people say, look, he died, get over it. Right? In all fairness, the people that are telling you that a loved one died and just get over it have clearly not gone through that. And sad to say, they're going to, at some point, go through it. Okay? And what you have to look at is they don't know the emotional stuff that goes hand in hand with it. And the emotions are a devastating thing. Now, when I call it an excuse that, it doesn't go away because, nobody can understand, nobody's been through it, guess what? The sad part of it is this. There is not a person, there is not an individual on the planet that has gone through something that no one else has gone through. It does not make it easier for somebody to go through it. And here's the sad part. You can't know what's going on. You can't know what I'm going through because you've never been there. Well, sad to say, but the people that have been there aren't going through the same thing you're going through anyway. So they're not going through your life. And using that as a reason to hang on to the past, is an excuse bar none. Now, you may not be able to get over it yourself. You may require severe counseling. And I mean find a proper counselor, because most of those are intriguing. But the fact is that strictly hanging on to the idea that you don't know what I've been through, if you think about it, if you're constantly repeating it, and you're constantly telling people about it, then one of two things is happening. Either they got the picture that what you went through was pretty horrendous, or they're never going to get it. But every time you talk about it, you bring it back. Every time you focus on it, you bring it back. And it comes back to the same thing. Extricate yourself from the problem. Now, one of the, I mentioned we were going to go into a different topic. Well, not a different topic, a different section. That being the living room. And what the living room was for, originally designed for, was for discussions. That was for your complicated discussions, your complicated debates, that sort of thing. Okay, and when you look at it, and you take a look at, we started in the dining room, and that's where the dining room is one of the three places where you do not have negative conversations at all. When a negative conversation starts up at the dining room table, when a complication comes up, acknowledge it occurred, commit to dealing with it as soon as the meal is finished and cleaned up from, and then go to the living room and sit down and discuss it. For pity's sakes, take a coffee with you, take a drink with you, whatever, drink non-alcoholic, and you sit and you talk. The living room was designed for just that. People coming into a place of gathering, a place to communicate, a place to discuss what was going on and to work out complications, to work out life. And, you know, the sad part is that when you look at what a living room is for, focus on the first part of it. Dining room is for dining. In other words, eating. It is for talking, absolutely communicate. There are many cultures that have a really great idea where the meal may take a couple hours because they sit and they talk. But they don't have the fight at the dining room table. That gets moved to the living room for some reason. But it also cuts down on broken dishes if you put all the dishes away first. The living room is to discuss life. Okay, and one of the biggest things that we look at where the living room is concerned is that room is where all the energy in the house focuses. Because much as the kitchen is the most used room in the house, second only to the bathroom, and we're not going to discuss what the bathroom is used for. If you haven't figured that out, you could have a problem anyway. But when it comes to day to day, hour by hour, the living room is the more commonly used area. And what it's for is talking about the things that are going on with life. That's why you put the TV in the living room. I question really why have the TV at all on occasion, but okay, put the computer in the living room. But that's where families gather. That's why it's usually the biggest room. And what you have to deal with from that standpoint, okay, what you have to really focus, okay, what you really have to focus on is you have to take a look at it and turn around and go, okay, we're going to build our home, which means the living room is now where we're going to have discussions, we're going to have the complications. Okay, and you know, the reality is everybody has a past. I am going to make more miscalculations than I care to count. And am I going to apologize for every one of them? Not a snowball's prayer. Because understand something. My memories date back well over 26,000 years. Well over. And I remember seeing things, and for that matter, doing things that are absolutely horrendous. Now, Misha has put in here, I've changed for me. The only person anyone has to change for is themselves. No one else. No one else matters when it comes to your future. And in all fairness, that falls under karmic law number 1. You must be true to you. That is the critical issue. Okay. And what you really have to look at, what you really would be wise to look at is, what kind of a home do you desire to have? Okay, Kat has added here, one needs to be happy with them no matter what people think, but it can be hard. And I'm pretty certain that she means one must be happy with themselves, and that is absolutely correct. And you know, I made a comment the other day to my other half, and I told her flat out, I'm not happy with what I'm becoming. And the reason for that is, this isn't the position that I'm standing in right now. This is not the position that I was aiming for. And Cass just verified that, yes, that was what she was getting at. If you're not happy with you, you're going to have a hard time dealing with anybody else. But the reality is, it doesn't, in the long run, matter if other people are happy with you. if you're not happy with you. But here's the switch. Okay, and this is where it can turn around a little different. Many people suffer from low self-esteem. And many people suffer from extremely low self-confidence. But sometimes what can happen is you can borrow the confidence of somebody else, borrow the confidence somebody has in you, to bolster your own confidence long enough for you to develop your own self-confidence. Self-esteem has the same ability. Now, do understand that, now, Kat says, I take my kids for a walk when I want to have a talk one-on-one because it may have nothing to do with anyone else. And that is absolutely the best thing you can do. The living room is designed for groups, for people, or like for the whole family or the whole household utilization, not for the issue of not for the issue of taking a strip off somebody or discussing a delicate matter. There are times when a child will want to talk to a parent or to a sibling but doesn't want everybody else involved. And going to a different area, i.e. going for a walk, going to a quiet room where you can talk, absolutely, definitely encouraged. One-on-one communication is critical. The purpose of the living room is for family building or for household operations. Now, one thing that you have to look at, and I keep saying have to, and that's a really bad phrase because really it's your choice, but the living room itself, when you've got the room to do it, the living room should be organized. Much like the kitchen, if the kitchen isn't clean, you're going to turn out food that is, shall we say, not quite up to your own standards, unless your standards are extremely low. Now, the living room has the same issue. If it's not sorted out and tidy, the energy in the room can get really cluttered. So we have the problem of, what do you do when you've got too much stuff, or you don't have a playroom and the kids' rooms aren't big enough? Well, the living room, remember that thing about living, let the kids bring their toys out to the living room, but when they're done, they take the toys back. Okay. And, Kat points out a positive home is a happy home. And on the whole, very much. There are times when, oops, Keith, I can see my house. Yeah, you don't want to see mine. Remember that thing about me not being perfect? Well, I used to be a professional pack rat. Okay, I'm working on breaking that. It's not as easy as I'd like. Am I going to blame somebody else? No. I could, if I wanted, turn around and go, it's genetic, because every member of my bloodline, from my grandfather born in 1902, all the way down through the cousins and brothers and nieces and nephews, they're all pack rats. So, maybe there's a bit of a genetic twist there. But what we have to look at is, you look at the living room and you go, okay, I desire a happy home. So what am I going to do? Am I going to build a home and build the energy in a home where I'm constantly screaming at people? Or am I going to build a home where I'm working through problems with them? And here's the biggest topic that most people I've found are told, ignore. You don't talk to your kids. I love the concept, don't fight in front of your kids. Well, in case you haven't noticed, fighting amongst couples or amongst individuals is going to happen. And if it were organized so that you could avoid fighting in front of your kids, that'd be great. But sad to say, tempers don't work quite that way. So the key is not so much don't fight in front of the kids. I'd like to say just don't fight, but, talk about living in a dream world. man was built for war, there's going to be fights. But if you're going to fight in front of the kids, make up in front of the kids. And bear in mind I said make up, not make out. They'll figure that one out, although you do have to talk to them about that, and this is not the show that we are going to discuss that on. You have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I focusing on what the people in this house are doing well? Or am I going to focus on the problems? And you know, the neat concept of if you don't pay attention to the problems, they don't solve. Well, yeah, actually they do. You see, it's kind of like a fire. If you light a match and you've got a fire going, if you quit throwing wood on the fire or fuel on the fire will go out. If a fight starts, it can only continue if the communication continues. So, if one party, or preferably both, literally quits speaking, physically if you have to, leave the room, but you don't say anything, the argument will die. You know, Carrie Angie has put, yeah, I'm not quite certain there. She goes, if he has permission, then he will. He can, but he won't unless it's really beneficial for you. So I'm not 100%, that's obviously from something I said, but I've got a very short-term memory. Now, Kat goes, Pro and I picked and chose what we argued about in front of the kids when they were young. Yeah, and my hat's off to you. I didn't. When I was younger, and I got mad, I didn't think about who was in the room. Matter of fact, I'm 50 now. I still don't think about who's in the room. I was at a restaurant the other day and I got annoyed. I didn't think about whether or not there were other people in the room. I simply let everybody know I was no longer happy. So one of the biggest things that I look at is this. There is not a person on this planet that I'm aware of that is perfect. But everybody has potential. Okay. And with that in mind, you have to look at it if you desire to put this world back together and ask yourself this. We have a world that is in dire straits. It is not caring one way or the other what color you are, what your bloodline is, what your blood type is, how big your bank account is, what color your skin is. It doesn't care who you call God or what you call God. The world is in serious, serious trouble. Now, I've been accused of touting my own horn and claiming that I have all the answers. If I had all the answers, rest assured, this planet wouldn't be in this shape. But I don't want control. I have it right now of this station because, well, it kind of ended up that that's the only way I could get things to move that made sense. Now, this is a job. Turning this world around is a job that is not for one person. Do I have all the answers? No. Do I have to make the final decisions in this room? The answer is yes. In your living room, and this is, a lot of it is for the children out there that happen to be listening, or the tenants that happen to be not happy with their landlord, or the person that doesn't like their boss. Understand, the person who owns the ownership, who pays the rent, who pays the bills, who employs you, they have the final say as to what goes on in that location. Whether you agree with it or not doesn't matter. Okay, it really is an issue from your standpoint, a focal point of understanding. You don't have to agree with all the laws that are in place. But you do have to follow them. That's why they're called laws. And karmic law does dictate you must follow the law in the land in which you are. Starting with the home, that means the one that pays the bills is the one that has the one whose name is on the ownership papers or on the rental agreement, is the one that makes those laws. And therefore you have to pay attention to them. So if the owner of the house says, we're going to have a family time and we're going to rebuild our family now, and we're not going to talk about last week unless it was something good or something critical that yet has to be dealt with, but we're going to focus on the positive, and we're going to commit to starting on a positive note, dealing with the negative things in the middle of it all, and ending on a positive note. By doing that, you change the energy of the people that are leaving your home. And if you send positive energy out of your house, then you're adding positive energy to the community. If you send negative energy out of the house, guess what you're adding? So you have to take a look at it. Okay, you have to open doors. You have to ask questions. And yes, that means talk to strangers. I'd lay odds most of you out there are strangers to your kids. They don't know what makes you happy. They don't know what ticks you off. They sure find out when they step over a boundary. But far too many people turn a blind eye now. Want an example of what the blind eye syndrome does? Look south of the border. Look into the States. Look into what's happening in Ireland. Look at the problems that are happening in India, in the Middle East, in Canada. You name it. That is the effect of the blind eye syndrome. That is the effect of don't say something if you can't say something nice. So I'm going to get told by people that I'm coming across as though I have all the answers, that I know everything better than everybody else. Yeah, the only thing I've got that goes back further than most people is most of you remember your life this lifetime. I remember past lives. I remember events that are mind-boggling and numbing, that people only read part of. So when we come back, because we're going to go for break here, and when we come back, we're going to expand a little, and we're going to take a look at the community outside the home. Okay, as we're going to tie the community outside the home to the home itself, and we're going to show you how to bring it all into balance. Of course, I can give you all the tools. It's up to you to use them. Now, understand I don't have all the tools. That being said, we're going to go for break. This is Keith Andrews, your host of The Gathering, working right here live on the Universal Portal of Peace. And we will be back momentarily.